GDOC 2020. It's time to sip the juice. Now, if you're developing a game, chances are that you want it to have that next level feel. But that might be tough because you may not know exactly what you need to give your game, that oomph, that fire. So we have a speaker here who's going to share with us how he did just that with his game, HyperDot, an award-winning game that is based on basic shapes and is just about dodging everything. Charles McGregor is an award-winning game developer, musician, and artist, and he founded Tribe Games, which is an indie game studio based in Minnesota. He has also worked on many platforms, including the Oculus Rift, Microsoft HoloLens. He works on PC, mobile, and game consoles. All right, let's hear it for Charles McGregor.
Hi, as you mentioned, my name is Charles McGregor, and this is my talk, Sip the Juice. So this is all about talking about the game feel and making your game really polished. So a lot of people are trying to have it so that, or notice like, the game doesn't feel all that good, or it doesn't play that well. So hopefully this talk will help guide you to trying to discover different ways to make it so that you're able to make new and interesting decisions and things. So before I start, I do want to preface that I am, this talk has been there are plenty of juice talks out there that are super great. Some from Vlambeer probably being the most famous of Art of Screen Shake. But I want to approach this from not necessarily only a purely art standpoint, but also a mechanic standpoint and things. But I guess I should preface that I do have an art minor. So I do know things about some graphic design work. But we'll jump right into it. So this is HyperDot, a game where you dodge everything. As you can see, you play as a dot, and then in this version there are some squares, and you just have to avoid them. It's not all that hard, and it's a little boring. There's not a lot going on. Things are just like appearing out of nowhere, out of thin air. I don't really have to move. I'm kind of only doing that because it's a little more interesting than watching a static dot. Oh, look, I have to move a little. So yeah, there's not a lot going on and things like that. And when you run into something, oh wow, it just shows the end of the screen and that's it. So there's not a lot going on. So there are definitely ways that we can go about doing making this feel a lot better and making this feel more fun to just like interact with. So one way of trying to figure that out is to look at what is it that you're trying to actually go for your game. In this case, for HyperDot, there is only one mechanic in the game. There is movement. Everything revolves around movement. So because of that, I can look at, all right, so with movement, what can I do to make it so that, it's more fun to move around? So one way to do that in this instance is it kind of feels like I'm trudging around. This is me going at full speed. I'm not able to, it's not really all that fun. I feel like I'm in like molasses or something like that. So one way to do that is to add a little speed boost. So yeah, now I'm moving around and it feels more one-to-one with my joystick that I'm using. But the issue still persists that enemies are just popping in. There's not a lot of reason for me to move. It's a little bit more fun to move around, but it's not super fun to move around and whatnot. So what else can we do? So again, let's worry about movement. Movement is the main pillar of the game. So one way to do that is to add in more enemies and do a little bit more game design to make it so that, I have to worry about movement. I have to worry about, there's reason for me to move. So, and the other main thing I want to bring up is that there's like no indicator to say, there's a thing showing up. So I have to like run away, or I have to just react to the fact that, a thing popped up. So if we add in more enemies and add in some indicators showing off, hey, there's some things showing up, that is going to be this is leaps and bounds better because now I'm able to like anticipate and react, and there are now things that approach me, so I can move around, and it's not as simple. And of course, we get into everyone's favorite, the triangles. If you have played HyperDot before, you'll be fairly familiar with triangles. But yeah, so now I'm able to run around in things, and I'll have more agency to move around, which already feels better. So before we get to any of the art stuff that we're gonna be doing, one of the big key takeaways is to make sure that like the game design and the balance is there, and try and figure out what kind of variables are inside of your game. So with HyperDot, one of the key variables is the move speed. So as you can see, again, I changed the move speed of the player. I changed the move speed of the enemy. So like now the squares are moving at variable rates. So it's not as predictable and easy as like, oh, I just move over. Oh, I just move over. Those kind of things are super useful to identify and then to work on. So with that, the one other thing that happens is that I'm playing around. Oh, yay, I'm doing great. And then I hit something, and then sometimes you might not see it, or then we just are like unceremoniously put on this screen where it's just a white screen with some text that say how long you lasted. It's great for like functionality, but in terms of like seeing like the permanence or how far you've gotten, or like how things are going, it's not as useful. So one way in this game's case is that we can add a little bit of permanence in terms of when you get hurt. Now you can actually see what's going on with the rest of the game. Like the game will just continue playing it out. This is something that is super nice to have, where you can have the game just be, oh, it's just not, like playing in the background, so you can have semi screensaver. But it's something that is useful for connecting the game and the menus and UI stuff together, so that it makes it feel a little bit more polished and a little bit more connected. So because now we have that, now the game's feeling a little bit better. It's not, it mechanically is feeling a lot better because now I'm able to move around at a decent speed, at least for this level, and I'm able to like have interesting enemies, so I can dodge left, right, dodge some triangles and things. But one other thing that is happening a lot is that enemies are just like popping up. They just appear and they disappear. The player just appears, disappears, and things like that. So one other concept that I want to introduce is adding in curves. So curves are basically or a thing called tweening, or ease in, ease out, slow in, slow out. There's multiple ways of answering that question, or having that having it so that you can have different like words and verbiages of that. But it's basically like, instead of having like instantaneous, okay, I'm here, you can have it so that they ease in to the scene and they ease out of the scene. So like here, they just appear, and there's nothing going on. Like all the enemies just pop. But with curves, you can have it so that they slowly grow over time. Or when the player shows up, it slowly grows over time. So those kind of things can really add in a lot of like, oh, it's not just coming out of thin air. There's a little bit more like, oh, there's kind of not necessarily a reasoning behind it, but it's not as sudden and jarring as appearing just out of thin air. And that actually is one other thing that I want to mention is you don't necessarily have to eradicate everything that just pops up. It's more when you see something that just pops up in your game, you can think about, well, does it need to just instantaneously pop up? It doesn't make sense for it to just do that. Or should there be something like a smooth transition in things? So I also added in some curve animation going in with the indicators, where it'll slowly go into place where it's supposed to be, which is also a fairly easy thing to do. You just say, all right, start, like randomly start on somewhere else and then go to where you're supposed to be. And then you just like slowly ease in to get to the other, or to get to your destination, because having those ease in and ease out animations kind of, or give you more momentum and gives things weight, where if you were in a car and you said, okay, we're going to go to 60 miles an hour, you're not going to want to say, all right, we're going to go 60 miles an hour instantaneously, and then we're now 60 miles an hour. That would be really bad. You would hurt yourself when you're doing that. So you don't want to, there's like this buildup of trying to get to 60 miles an hour. All right. So with that said, now we can talk about adding in a little bit more flourishes in terms of like art and things. So to preface, all of these things that I'm going to be adding in are still all basic shapes. They're still circles and triangles and whatnot. So this is far less about the actual illustration things and just how you're using the art pieces. But right now, so as you can see that the player is, I'm moving around the player, but there's not much there's not much else. It's just a dot moving around on the screen. And it doesn't feel as attached to the environment in a sense. One way to do that, as I dodged all these things, one way to do that is to try and emphasize the things that you want the player to do. So again, in our case, I want the player to be like caring about movement, and movement is the main thing that I care about. So I want to emphasize the things that are going on with movement. So when the dot is not moving around, or when the dot is moving around, I want to be like, hey, you've done something, or you're doing the thing that I want you to do, which is move. So I want to add in something that tells you, hey, thanks for, well, not necessarily thanks for moving, but something that acknowledges the fact that you did that. So we can do that with a trail. So yeah, now we have just a simple circle that shrinks out. It uses the ease in, ease out principles that I was talking about, that shrinks out. And then that way you're able to have it so that like, oh, I'm moving around. And it's kind of fun to just move around now, because the things that I am doing, the feedback that I'm getting is like, oh, hey, I'm doing something, and something happened because I'm doing it, which is great. That kind of stuff is the things that you want to think about. So think about the things of like emphasizing the things you want people to do. And you can have the reverse of that, where you want to de-emphasize the things you don't want people to care about. So one way that I could de-emphasize things that I don't want people to care about are, if you notice, there are like shapes that are long gone. They are outside of the circle, and they are not going to touch you. There is no reason for them to be like, hey, I'm a shape, I'm really scary, because they can't touch you at all. So another thing that we can do is like de-emphasize those things and say when they get outside of the arena, if you look on the end, they will now go away. They will shrink down and be like, hey, I've left the arena. Don't worry about me. Again, all of this is just a simple sprite change, which is just an outline of a box or an outline of whatever the shape it is. And then have it so that you're basically saying like, okay, I'm out of the thing. Yeah, I'm grayed out. Don't worry about me. But I existed. So there goes that permanence again, where you're just thinking like, oh, okay. So I'm able to have it so that the game or the things that I'm doing, the things that I have interacted with, they mattered and they impacted things, but it's no longer super prevalent for me right now as I run into more things. So with all of that said, now the game is feeling a lot better. Like right now, if you were to tell me, okay, now play this game for 15 minutes, I think I would probably sit here for 15 minutes trying to get like, oh, how long can I actually last? And things, because the game no longer feels like I'm trudging through molasses, and I'm no longer, or like, and things are happening and reacting to the fact that I'm like doing something. Like there are actual enemies that are reacting to the fact that I'm moving around, or me moving around, I have a trail around. And adding in that level of polish is really nice to to allow like emphasis on the thing that you want, and again, in this case, is movement. But we can do a little bit better, and this is where the more artsy stuff comes in. So again, when we think back to the pillar of movement, and like emphasizing things that we care or we want the players to think about. One other thing that we can think about is what if we like let the players know, hey, this thing is being shot out like right now, this instant, or oh, you got hit right here, or like, hey, this player is being spawned. So one way of doing that is adding in some particles. Again, all these are just basic shapes, but we can add in particles where now when I get hit, I add like a little pulse. So it's no longer just an instantaneous and it's just gone, but it's now I got hit, and then this thing that got hit there, and then you can tell, oh, that's where I got hit, and that's where things happen. So there's a little bit of permanence, and then the game is reacting to the fact that you got hit, and I just add a sprite that grows and fades out, and that's really largely that. I add in a little bit of shooting particles around where the enemies are spawning, and it says, hey, this has happened now. I have shot out an enemy. Things like that. And then I add in a little like flare in the beginning to just have like, oh, this is where the player has spawned and things. Again, super simple in terms of the like actual art that goes in, but it's useful to learn or like know what are the things that I can change, what are the variables that I can change in order for this to work. And another thing that a lot of people actually don't notice, even in the full game, is when you get hurt, the arena actually like pulses your color or the color of whoever got hurt, just as a little like, oh, hey, something happened, so it affected the entire arena, letting people know subconsciously. Okay, so with all of that said, there's still some things that are I'm noticing that is like popping out. Things like the menus. The menu animations are non-existent. They are, I exist, and then I don't exist. If we look back at the screen where it's all of the UI and stuff, it's just like, okay, I'm here. All right, I'm here. Okay, I'm here, and it's just popping up. And that again, when you're thinking about trying to apply the curves and doing the ease in, ease out principles, does it need to do that? Is there a way for me to have it slide in or like do some type of not be as jarring unless you're going for that? And in this case, I'm not going for that. So one way to do that is add animations. So now there are animations on the end screen. So all I'm doing here is just sliding things in and then sliding them out. The most fancy thing here is that there is a mask on the end screen where it doesn't slide in like literally from all the way over to the left side of the screen and then go to the center. You see like partially slide in. But for the most part, yeah, I'm just sliding things in, sliding them out. They're fading in, fading out. And in that way, it's just like, oh, wow, that makes it so like that feels so much more, so much better. And it kind of feels more cohesive because it doesn't feel as jarring as, all right, now we're at another screen. Similar to how we started out, where it was really jarring to be like, okay, so this is the game. And then now we're in the menu. And then you just have to deal with the fact that we just did a smash cut from between the two, disconnecting you from what's going on. But yeah. All right. So with the added animations and things, there's one other thing that we can do. We can make the game look a little bit better by adding in a background. So one way of trying or getting to this point is to be like, okay, does the game is there ways to make add in flourishes or add in different points of interest in the game visually? If you are not artistic, again, none of the things that I'm going to be adding in are like super hard to make. But it's hard to get to the position where you're thinking, oh yeah, this is where I'm thinking like, oh yeah, I should add these things in, or I should do these things. You might not be super into trying to figure that stuff out or doing art related things. So one way to try and get in that mindset a little bit is to think about, hey, what happens if I did? What happens if I changed this around, or I added a thing in the background, or I did something? If I just experimented with something, that is one way of trying to figure that out. Or you can think about it from the mechanical sense or the logistical sense of like, I want to emphasize things that the player is supposed to be doing and feeling, and then I want to de-emphasize other things. So one way to do that is have focus on the center of the arena. So the arena that's actually where the player is running around, versus the outside, where again, not super important to be looking out there. So we can add in a background. And here, these are just squares going on in the background. And they're just rotating at different speeds. So yeah, they're just squares rotating at different speeds. And then I added focus to the arena itself by making it so that this is the brightest white thing here versus all of the gray outside. Don't worry about the gray outside. Again, anything like on the outside is being hidden away by the fact that like anything that leaves the arena becomes gray and smaller. So it's just like emphasizing those kind of things. But yes, I am using this to reapply those the things that I'm emphasizing versus the things I want to de-emphasize. All right, so now we're gonna do probably the most controversial thing in the game, and it's only controversial when I point it out. We're gonna add in parallax. So with parallax, that means that the camera will move around, but then certain things in the background won't move around as much, and things further in the back won't move around as much. So think about when you're in like a car. Things that are really close to the car whiz right by, but like mountains in the background stay mostly static. That kind of stuff. Most people don't ever notice the fact that there is parallax and HyperDot, but that confession is that the game never really looked like that first iteration, because the one thing that I was like drawn to do was add in a parallax arena with the dot moving around, dodging shapes. That was my original like prototype idea of like, oh yeah, I want to try and add parallax to the thing. But yes, so the reason why I wanted to add in parallax is because it's emphasizing the fact that you are moving. There is another like physical reminder that, hey, you are moving. I understand and acknowledge the fact that you are moving, and it's helping you figure out, hey, this could be something that you could, or this is something that I'm going to semi reward you by like moving the camera over so that you have a better view of yourself. It's really subtle and it's not the biggest thing, but because you now are noticing it, you're probably like, oh, you're either, oh, I really like that, or, oh, I really don't like that. I'm getting kind of motion sick. Again, this is super, super subtle. So I never bring it up. Because it's just how the game is at that point versus a selling point. So now we're probably going to, or now we're going to move on to what is a really deep topic that I'm gonna kind of brush over a little bit, which is adding in sound. So sound is a very deep rabbit hole that we can get down through, but for the interest of the talk and time, I'm just going to basically say that with sound, there's plenty of things that you can do to make it so that your sounds feel like super juicy and and they sync up with all these things. Just think about the actions that you care about and then the actions that you don't care about. And emphasize the things that you care about and then de-emphasize the things you don't care about. So don't start adding in sounds that don't make any changes to any, or like that are superfluous to whatever you're doing. They are they don't actually matter. That just brings attention to things that you don't actually want the player to care about, versus things that you do want them. So we can add in some sound. And now you can hear there's like a starting sound. I can run around. If I get hit, there's a sound where I get hit and it sounds a little bit more meaty. Like, oh, I got hit. Like that felt bad, but that felt like semi-satisfying to the point where it was like, it wasn't just a sudden, okay, I got hit and that was it. Adding in things like that, adding in UI sounds, is also really useful to make it so that it's fun to navigate. Right now, there's only A to navigate, but make sure that things that are like repetitive sounds, like moving up and down in a menu, or like having all these enemies shooting out things, making sure that isn't super grating and is more understated. It's not something that is just like a chainsaw that is going off every single time that you're like moving or something is being shot out. That would be really annoying and grate on the players. So you don't want to do that. So with all of that said, there is also one other thing that is going on. There is ambient noise. That is more for the ambiance, the theming of the game, of its minimalist / like semi, I wouldn't say clinical, but like it feels super abstract. So having like this rumbling going on in the background was one other thing that I was originally thinking about doing. And in addition to that, that it is a semi like accessibility feature where on the Able Gamers website, there's like a lot of recommendations of having some type of sound to say, hey, the game's on. If you're allowed to have like low vision or blind, you're able to tell, hey, the game's working and things are going on. So it's really nice to have like some type of ambiance or thing going on in the background. All right, so with all of that said, now I'm going to talk about a thing that is probably overlooked the most, which is rumble. Rumble is going to be hard to show on the screen, but adding in rumble when you get hurt, or adding in rumble for like extra flourishes. I have a feature in the game where you can press the button to tell who you are. Adding in rumble there is super useful to be like, oh, I did a thing, and it's extremely easy to make it feel like, hey, I did a thing. Oh, I was and the game gave me feedback for doing said thing. Easiest thing here is when I run into a square, I get rumble. So, oh, I ran into a square. That didn't feel good. Things like that are great. But yeah, rumble is really one of the easiest things to make it so that your game feels super polished. So don't ignore rumble. All right, and now probably the more well-known controversial thing is adding in screen shake. So this is extremely useful for getting those impacts, making them feel like, oh, that really hurt. Because there's like this emphasis on like, oh, I ran into like a wall or something like that. But the caveat here is that sometimes it can make people motion sick, especially if you go overboard. So don't go overboard and do more like of a subtle touch. Here I'm not doing like adding screen shake when I bump into the wall, or if I'm doing this, I'm not adding screen shake. Only here, and not like drastic. It's not swinging left or right. You have no idea what's going on the screen. Bad ideas. And in addition to that, in the full game, I also offer the ability to turn off screen shake. Not everybody likes screen shake, and again, that can make people motion sick. Same thing goes with rumble. Not everybody likes having like the force feedback on your controller, so adding in that kind of thing is really nice. Nice to have like a toggle. Okay, another rabbit hole that I can go down, but I don't want to go down because of time, is music. With music, there are tons of ways to approach this, and it really does depend on the game that you're making. But with HyperDot, I wanted to make a semi-relaxing, like more chill kind of thing, because I don't want to have the game's soundtrack be like super stressful, because you're already doing something that's kind of stressful right now, which is dodging all of these different shapes. There's a lot of shapes on the screen right now. So having it so that you're not having to not having it so that the music is not like super overpowering and really getting in your face was one design decision that I really wanted to adhere to. So I added in some music. So now we have music going on in the background, and again we have the parallaxing going on. We have I have rumble when I get hit. There's animations going on. There's particles that show up. Things go and get de-emphasized at this point. I also added in a cool feature where I duck the music out during this screen, because again, thinking about emphasis and de-emphasis, I don't need you to care about the music right now, because it's not the music is trying to be like, okay, you're done trying to do what your run was, and now this is more of a moment of reprieve. So you're trying to, so I have it so it ducks down, which is great, because now when you're in it and you're like, all right, now I'm ready to play. Now I'm getting prepared and ready to do my high score run and stuff, because there is that difference. And it's also nice because I'm doing a presentation and you can hear me while I'm on the screen. So yeah, that is one other thing that you can do, is look at the different variables again. Look at the different variables and be like, well, what can I experiment with to make it so that these things emphasize and de-emphasize the things that I want. With music, one variable I can do is the volume, or in this case, I add a low pass filter, which is basically I cut away all of the high sounds in the song, and I just leave the bassy sound thing. So it sounds like it's like a party next door or something. So thinking about those kind of things is super useful. And another thing here is that the music also plays after you lose. It continues to play. This is kind of about like that permanence. There's a lot of newer games are starting to do this because there are less limitations, but where the song just keeps playing after a load, or after you restart, it just keeps on going, and it's not necessarily like broken up. Again, stylistic choice, but it's nice to have it so that there's like a consistency between the two different between gameplay and menus things, which is super good for that cohesion and that level of polish that feels like, oh yeah, this whole thing feels cohesive, because everything seems glued together. And one final thing to do to make it like a glued together piece is the thing that probably more people think about when they're thinking like, oh yeah, I'm gonna add juice, other than maybe particles, is adding in image effects. So yes, even inside of HyperDot, there are image effects. So I added in a blur on the outside, because again, you don't really care about what's going on the outside. It should be on your peripheral vision. I add in a vignette, so that's the black, or like it darkens the corners of the screen. I'm trying to highlight, hey, the center of the screen is more important, because that is where all the action is. It's a nice effect when looking around on the outsides of the screen, but it is all trying to draw your eye towards the center, because that is where the action is. And then I also add in some anti-aliasing, because this game is about shapes, and really jagged shapes don't look the greatest. You don't have to do this, but it does depend on whether or not you want to have it depends on your aesthetic. So if you were doing 1-bit art, it would be really weird to have anti-aliasing, which is basically blurring like really high contrast things, like edges, and things like that. So that is and I totally forgot. The last other piece is that I added in this blur on this end screen, just so that like you're able to visually see what's like what is written on the end screen. But it's also a nice addition for like players to be able to change things up. There we go. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, I added in a blur to have it so that the players are able to read what's on the screen and read the text that's on the screen. But also you can still see things in the background. And again, confession time. I added in the blur way earlier in the process of like adding in polish, and the blur kind of helped decide the aesthetics of HyperDot like super strongly. So you don't have to go through these processes, this like step by step, but this is a really easy way to see how they are all building on each other, from like a more foundational to more superfluous kind of thing. But so with that said, we can look at where we started. Which was this. It was a dot, some squares. Yep, they were moving around, and it wasn't all that fun. It was a lot less engaging. Things didn't react to you. Things aren't doing stuff. They aren't really super engaging. But if we fast forward to where we are now, where we have the game now is reacting to you. There's like a bunch of like particles, there's effects, there's music, there's sound, there's animations going on when you get to the end screen. There's a blur, there's a lot of like image effects, which are all adding to like this level of polish that you normally get. So yeah, there's a huge difference between from this to this, or from this. So thank you all for listening to me talk. Just to go over the points really quickly that I really want to emphasize are really, it is try and find your pillars. Try and find the things that make it so that this is what I want people to care about. This is the thing that is like the core of my game. With HyperDot, it was really easy because the game is a really minimalist game. It was just movement, but it could be something different for you. The other thing is to discover the different things that you can change, from movement or like adding in backgrounds or changing the way that changing in the way that like things enter or exit, or how quickly things move, or how slowly things like change over time. However, whatever those variables are, try and find those and discover the things that you can tweak. It doesn't mean that the current settings that they're at are bad. It just means that there might be other ways to emphasize, de-emphasize things, which leads into the other point, is to emphasize the feedback. Emphasize giving the player, hey, you've done something. This is a thing that we want you to do, or a thing that we don't want you to do, and we want you to know about it. So getting hit or moving around or parallaxing the screen, things like that are super useful to tell the player, hey, you are doing you're doing a thing, and we acknowledge that. And then de-emphasize all of that extra noise. You don't need anything that you don't need the player to do. You don't have to have them do all of that stuff trying to figure out trying to figure out and parse all this information that are extra and they don't actually care or matter. If there's all these particles in this other side of the room, but like there's no reason for you to go over to the other side of the room, then people will go over to the other side of the room thinking like, oh, well, there's nothing here. Unless that is the point, which is you're trying to explore a room or something like that. You want to try and de-emphasize all of that noise and things to make it so that it's really clear and obvious for like the player to be like, oh, yes, I know what I'm doing, or I understand and can tell what is going on. And then lastly, probably the most important is to have fun while you are doing all of these things to add in that polish. Hopefully it brings a smile to your face because you're like, oh, hey, that's making this game a little bit better. This is making like I'm feeling a little bit better about my game and how it is, how it's navigating towards like its completeness, and adding that little like extra layer of polish, that extra layer of juice that just like makes the game feel so good. But with all of that said, I do want to just say thank you for listening to me ramble about HyperDot and all of its crazy layers of juice. So yeah, you can follow me on at Tribe Games or me personally at DarkAceTG. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Charles. I mean, a lot of the things that you mentioned, I actually remember playing some games. Like I remember the days when Mario first started having like dust trails behind him when he started running. And I was like, oh, that's a little thing, but it's great because, it's like I'm running and now I can see dust trails behind him. Yeah, I remember when they started adding those little things in. I remember like when Star Fox 64 came out, now it was like I had Rumble and just the adding in force feedback. And like those things just really make the game, it's like a little thing, but it's a big thing. So thank you so much for calling all those things out and for showing us how you went from basic shapes to something that is like, yeah, this game has a real legit game feel to it. So thank you very much. We appreciate you and appreciate you showing us what you did.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. If you enjoyed it, and I know that I did, make sure you comment, share, like. If you're working on something, let people know. Maybe get some feedback on how you can make your game pop too. Take all the things that Charles showed us, go forward and make your game hot. All right. Keep it locked in. We got more.